I'm such a great father for buying our daughter a house. You can leave if you disagree. After all, once you've given me the money, I don't need you anymore." Those were the arrogant words of my husband, who made the unilateral decision to buy a high-rise condo with my money. But it turns out he had a shocking plan in mind. As soon as I heard it, I retaliated without a second thought. I went to my room and brought out our divorce papers. "All right. Here, divorce papers." The look on my husband's face was priceless when he saw the divorce papers. I suppose he never imagined I'd have them ready to go. But the real counterattack was just beginning. I couldn't help but smirk. "My name is Lily Johnson. I'm a 50-year-old office worker who has loved the Japanese language since my student days. I can carry on a casual conversation in Japanese without any issues. When I was 23, I married for the first time. Unfortunately, my husband left this world just 6 months after our wedding. The cause was a traffic accident. He was hit by a drunk driver. Back then, I couldn't accept the harsh reality and lived my days with a gloomy face. I received $500,000 in life insurance money after my husband's death, but no amount of money could bring him back. During the darkest times of my life, I was comforted by a man named Ethan Johnson. He was a coworker at my company who would listen to my story for hours on end. Over time, I found myself falling for him, and we married when I was 25. I never forgot about my first husband. I still vividly remember the times we shared, and I decided to keep the life insurance money untouched for emergencies. A year after marrying Ethan, we had a daughter, Mia. Mia is now an illustrator living on her own. With her grown up, one might think I'd have a peaceful life with my husband, but that's not the case. Our relationship started to deteriorate when Mia was in her junior year of high school. Because we couldn't agree on Mia's education. From the time Mia was born, Ethan had mapped out her future on his own. He repeatedly expressed his wish for Mia to attend a prestigious university, believing it would open up more opportunities for her future. He even enrolled her in tutoring services since elementary school. Ethan never pushed Mia too hard to study, so I didn't oppose. But Mia loved drawing more than studying, and even as an amateur, I could tell she was incredibly talented. I had a hunch she might make it her career someday. That hunch turned out to be right when Mia announced during her junior year of high school, "I want to be an illustrator in the future. So, I want to go to an art school for university." I wanted Mia to pursue what she loved, so I agreed. But Ethan was vehemently opposed. "Go to a prestigious university like Harvard. After graduation, work for a big corporation. It's more secure and you'll be happier," he yelled, completely dismissing Mia's dream. Even when Mia suggested I could start by working for a company, Ethan wouldn't hear it. "An illustrator? You're just playing around drawing pictures. I didn't invest all this money in you for you to have such a frivolous career." He was so harsh that I found myself stepping in. "There's no need to speak like that. It's Mia's life, let her try," I said. But that only made Ethan angrier. "Mia is my daughter. It's a child's job to fulfill their parents' dreams. And if she lives as I say, she's guaranteed to be happy." He spouted such nonsense. There's no guarantee that attending a renowned university or landing a job at a big corporation equals a happy life. It was shocking to realize Ethan held such a distorted belief. I had hoped he would eventually come to understand and support Mia's decision, but that was wishful thinking. Despite our attempts to persuade him, our efforts were in vain. A deep rift formed between us. While I took on all the financial responsibility for Mia's education and living expenses, he seemed dissatisfied. I remember his constant complaining and snide remarks. Despite all this, Mia was admitted to her first choice art university and worked hard at her art studies. She landed a job as an illustrator at a certain company and started living on her own. Though there are tough times, like working through the night and on holidays, she's doing well. However, my husband still refuses to accept Mia's job. He constantly complains, saying, "We wasted money on tutoring services. It's embarrassing to have such a failure as a daughter." I thought his views would change once he saw Mia standing on her own, but there's not even a trace of that. He's also been harsh towards me for siding with Mia. He yells about the food tasting bad or the cleaning not being done almost every day, despite not being able to do any housework himself and leaving it all to me. At this point, I realized that this was his true nature. He seems to be the type of person who can't stand when things don't go his way. He was kind when Mia was obedient, but changed dramatically when she expressed her desire to become an illustrator. It's probably due to his personality. Being at home was painful for me, and the company became my place of comfort. We work at the same company, but in different departments so we can avoid each other. Around this time, I received a certain offer. Hearing it, I made a big decision. One day, my husband suddenly said something unexpected. "I've decided to buy Mia a brand new high-rise condominium. Mia is still my precious daughter, after all. I want her to live somewhere nice. I've already started the paperwork with a real estate agent." Despite his contempt for Mia, this sudden turn of events aroused suspicion. Moreover, I wondered if he had the money to buy a new high-rise condominium. Seeing my reaction, he smirked. "Don't worry. You're the one paying for the high-rise condominium." "What? Hold on a second. You can't just decide something like that without discussing it," I retorted. Ethan just scoffed. "I know. You've got $500,000 from your previous husband's life insurance, right? You can buy it with that. With your money, I'm going to live in the high-rise condominium with Mia. I've had to put up with her, so I'm planning to make full use of her. You and Mia are ultimately my property, so just obey me." A surge of anger rose within me. He had decided to buy the high-rise condominium to spite me and Mia. I could not comprehend his way of thinking. Incredibly, he carelessly revealed his scheme and intentions. Besides, there was no way I was going to let my important life insurance money be used for such a thing. I am truly a good father, buying a house for my daughter. If you oppose, it's divorce. Just give me the money, and I'm done with you. The moment I heard that, I struck back without mercy. I went to my room and brought out divorce papers. "Fine. Here, divorce papers." When I showed him the divorce papers, he was stunned. He must not have expected me to have them. But the real retaliation starts here. I smirked. Facing my bewildered husband, I explained what I had been considering for some time now. I can't trust a man who discriminates against his own daughter like that. I'm tired of living a life where I'm constantly criticized by you. I had decided a while ago to divorce you. I was just waiting for the right time to bring it up, and then you said you wanted a divorce. It worked out just fine. He must have intended the divorce talk to be a threat. Completely flustered, he stammered. "Well, you see." Ignoring him, I filled in the divorce papers. "Come on, you write it down too. You want to be free from me too, don't you?" When I urged him, he reacted in rage. "What do you mean, divorce? It was just a joke. What are you thinking, bringing out divorce papers?" Hearing that, my anger reached its peak. "I don't understand you either. I don't understand why you would buy a high-rise condominium just to spite your family. If you say we can't divorce, I'm willing to consult a lawyer." Then, begrudgingly, he filled in the divorce papers, but he was furious, saying, "Remember this." It seemed like he would retaliate in some form if I stayed in the house. I immediately left the house and submitted the divorce papers to the office. Then, when I reported everything to Mia by phone, she was also as angry as I was at my husband's outrageous behavior. "You're right to divorce him. You can stay at my condo for a while," she said, so I decided to take her up on her offer. That night, Mia and I discussed and planned to retaliate against my husband. Then, about a week later, on a day off, Mia and I visited the house where my husband, or rather ex-husband, lives. Even though I was living there just a week ago, it felt like someone else's house. When we rang the doorbell, he came out immediately. "What do you two want? Did you come to apologize for what happened?" My ex-husband looked down on Mia and me with a condescending gaze. I was quite irritated, but I swallowed my anger and spoke in a slightly weak voice. "That's right. Did you come to apologize for what happened?" "I'm sorry, Dad." Mia also made a remorseful face. Quite an actress. However, the ex-husband didn't realize it was a performance and seemed genuinely pleased, saying, I see. So, you've decided to reflect on your actions. I'm happy." However, he seemed curious about the bags we were carrying. "What are you doing with all those bags?" We were carrying bags that were filled to the brim in both hands. The bags were tied up, so you couldn't see inside. I took a stack of $10,000 bills from one of the bags. By the way, this was real money. "I thought it was wrong what I did to you, so I decided to give you my late husband's life insurance money. You can live in the high-rise condominium with Mia with this money. There's $500,000, can you put it in the safe?" The ex-husband was entranced by the $10,000 stack of bills. "Sure. Please put it in the safe." He easily let Mia and me into the house. Even though it had only been a week since we left, the house was littered with laundry and garbage. Come to think of it, the ex-husband was very bad at tidying up and doing housework. Imagining that he must be having a hard time living alone, I couldn't help but smile. Mia and I stuffed the contents of the bags into the safe. However, we put the $10,000 we showed him back in the bag, not in the safe. Fortunately, he wasn't watching us as he went to the kitchen saying, "I'll make some tea." When I returned to Mia's condo, I packed my bags and went out again. I was going to set out on my own to a new place. "Take care, Mom." Mia saw me off with a smile. "I'll contact you when I settle down." "Take care of yourself, Mia." I left Mia's condo with a smile on my face. 2 days later, I was asleep in my new home when I received a call from my ex-husband. "Hey, what happened to the $500,000? There's nothing but garbage in the safe." As I burst into laughter, I thought to myself, "He really took a while to figure it out, huh?" My ex-husband had fallen neatly into my trap. The majority of what was in those bags was simply scrap paper. I had rolled up unwanted newspapers and filled the bags. I told him that each bag contained $500,000, but that was a lie. To gain his trust, I did prepare $10,000 in real cash from the bank. That money was immediately returned to my account, so I had nothing in hand. If he had asked to see the content of the bags, I was ready to show him, scoffing at the absurdity of the situation. But he was fooled by just the sight of the $10,000 and didn't suspect a thing until now. "You've treated Mia and me horribly. I think it's fair to return the favor. If you want to hold a grudge, hold it against your past self, not me." When I said that, he responded desperately, "I understand, I was wrong. Can we live together again? I can't afford the high-rise condo, and I can't manage the housework. My place has turned into a trash heap." Taken aback by his self-centered plea, I retorted, I'm not your ATM or your housemaid. You're an adult, figure it out. Besides, I'm in Japan now. I can't come back to you. That's right. I was now living in Tokyo, Japan. This wasn't a mere overseas trip. I received an offer to work abroad from my company and decided to take it up. I've always wanted to work overseas and I love studying Japanese. The offer that came before our divorce was this opportunity to work overseas. Once I heard about it, I decided to divorce him and live overseas. I could live my dream and get away from my ex-husband. It was killing two birds with one stone. I had told Mia, but kept it from my ex, who was clearly taken aback. So, that's why I haven't seen you at work recently. Why didn't you tell me? Why should I? We're in different departments, and we're strangers now. Oh, by the way, Mia has something she wants to say to you. Tomorrow, we'll call you at 8 p.m. your time using a messaging app. All right. Is Mia going to live with me? We'll see. Wait until tomorrow. I said that and hung up. But I knew what Mia was going to talk about. I was looking forward to seeing his reaction as I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I had to get up fairly early due to the time difference, but it couldn't be helped. I started up the messaging app and video called my ex and Mia. Mia started expressing her feelings to her father right away. I loved you when I was a kid, Dad. I respected you as a parent and loved you from the bottom of my heart. But that's all in the past. You outright denied my career path, right? That's when I realized your true nature. You just wanted to control me, and there's no love in that. I hate you now, and I don't want to see you again. This call is our final contact. Upon hearing that, my ex seemed to be on the verge of tears. Don't say such things. I had expected him to get angry, but this reaction was surprising. Maybe he assumed Mia would love him no matter what. But Mia's harsh words continued. This is how I really feel. Dad, you need to reflect on how you hurt Mom all this time. Also, I moved out, so there's no point in going to the apartment where I used to live. Don't use detectives or anything to forcefully find out my new address. That's all I wanted to say. I also told him something I had forgotten to mention earlier. I've explained the circumstances of our divorce to our workplace, relatives, and your parents. I don't think relying on them will do you any good. Well, goodbye. Once Mia ended the video call, I also ended mine. My ex-husband was pleading. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I apologize, so please give me another chance. But I didn't care about that anymore. Later, when Mia and I talked, she said, I feel so much better now that I've said what I wanted to. I felt relieved after seeing my ex-husband in distress, too. Apparently, it became uncomfortable for my ex-husband at his workplace, so he resigned. He was disowned by relatives and his own parents, couldn't buy the high-rise condominium, and had to cancel. Moreover, he caused a scene at Mia's workplace, trying to call her out at the reception desk. He was immediately locked out and banned from the premises. My ex-husband, who kept repeating his selfish behavior, ended up losing everything instead of gaining anything. He seems to have lost all his energy and is now living as a recluse at home. A colleague wanted to ask him something about the handover of work and tried to contact him, but he didn't answer. The colleague went to his house reluctantly, where he found my ex-husband looking lifeless with a thick beard. He looked like a ghost, and a bad smell was coming from the room, according to the colleague. His house is probably in a state of garbage dump. Looking at my ex-husband living such an unfortunate life, I couldn't help but think he got what he deserved. On the other hand, I am enjoying my job overseas. I do hit cultural barriers being surrounded by foreigners, but I overcome them by carefully communicating. I can use my proficiency in Japanese, and I'm really glad I transferred overseas. Mia is working hard as an illustrator, and it seems like she's been given some big projects recently. I have a lot of meaningful work, and it's fun, she said over the phone. It's a joy for me as a parent to see my daughter doing what she loves. Despite all the hurdles, both Mia and I are starting to shine in our lives. Let's call the police. The incident happened at the wedding of my eldest son and his wife. The $3,000 we, as a couple, had gifted our eldest son for his wedding had somehow been switched out like a magic trick, replaced with just $10. It was a clear case of theft. I suggested to my son and husband that we should report this to the police. Both agreed with me. However, one person, not present, voiced their opposition. My name is Natalie, and I turned 60 this year. I've been married to my husband for 27 years. Blessed with a son and a daughter, I believe we've built a modest but happy family. My daughter is already married, leaving my eldest son's marriage as the only concern. Not to say I favor him, but my son, Kenneth, is quite the accomplished young man. Kind-hearted, tall, well-educated, and well-earning. He's a son to be proud of, and naturally, I wished for his marriage to be a cautious decision. It seems he has finally found someone to settle down with. My husband and I were anxious, waiting to see what kind of woman our eldest son would bring home. Ever since our son mentioned, "I've found someone I want to marry," we didn't make any plans on the weekends, just waiting. But there was no word of any visit for an introduction. It seems my son had already visited her family's side to greet them. Certainly, it's common sense to greet the other side first with a "please allow us to marry." Still, once done, shouldn't he promptly arrange a visit for us too? I thought about urging my son, but hesitated, not wanting to be a nuisance. A month passed without any greeting from his partner. My husband, having put aside his golf plans during the weekends, was growing increasingly irritable. We wanted to avoid any conflict before the marriage, as dealing with my husband's sour mood can be quite a task. So, "I'd like you to introduce us to the person you're seeing," I casually mentioned to my son. To which my son responded with a troubled look. "I've asked, but our schedules aren't lining up," he said. Apparently, her job keeps her busy, leaving no time for a visit. When I asked about her weekends, it seems she prefers to relax then, as weekdays are hectic. It's understandable. Anyone working weekdays would want their weekends to rest. Surely, my son must feel the same deep down. He seemed to understand that this excuse wouldn't fly. Otherwise, he wouldn't look so troubled. "Look, if you're going to get married, there needs to be some formality. Please bring her home properly. If Dad gets upset, marriage will be the least of your worries," I said. My son, with a solemn look, nodded. And then, "I'll make sure to bring her for the introduction," he assured. Trusting my eldest son's words, I decided to wait a bit longer. After our talk, he contacted us the following Sunday, saying he would bring her over. When I informed my husband, he reluctantly accepted, and I felt relieved. We were both tense, waiting from the morning of that day. A little after noon. "I'm on my way now," our son messaged us. The woman who arrived was as beautiful as a model. Even more stunning than any celebrity you'd see around, leaving both my husband and me astonished. She introduced herself as Amelia and mentioned she was 4 years older than our son. At 30, her manners were impeccable, leaving a good impression. I thought she seemed like the type who could lead my overly gentle son. Apparently, she's a magazine model. "I wanted to greet you sooner, but if I don't rest enough on the weekends, it affects my work the following week." "I'm sorry," Amelia said, apologizing gracefully. Being a model, her body is her asset. It made sense that carrying over fatigue to the next week isn't professional. "Will you continue working after getting married?" I asked, intending it to be a light question. To this, Amelia's face turned visibly displeased. Surprised by her reaction, I was taken aback when she responded, "Is that the first thing you ask when I come to greet?" "Yes, I plan to continue working." "Is there a problem?" Her sudden confrontational tone caught me off guard. Maybe the topic of working post-marriage was a taboo for her. After that, no matter what my husband and I asked, Amelia had a sulky attitude. Our son, sitting beside her, desperately tried to appease her mood. To no avail. "Are we done here? I have a photo shoot on Monday, so I'd like to rest. I heard from Kenneth that you were rushing us for a greeting. Can't you consider our schedule? Maybe Natalie doesn't understand because she's never worked?" Amelia said, crossing her arms and looking down on me disdainfully. Honestly, I was at a loss for words. Would someone normally act this way when visiting their future spouse's home? It was beyond my comprehension. My husband's expression also turned grim. Only the concerned look from my son, worried about me, kept me from losing my temper. He must truly care for her deeply. He certainly doesn't want a conflict between his mother and future wife before the wedding. I managed to contain my anger, hoping her attitude would change after the marriage. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience during your busy schedule. We were just eager to meet the woman who would become Kenneth's wife. Sorry for insisting." I apologized, maintaining my composure as an adult. Amelia responded to my apology with a scoff. Her arrogant demeanor was pervasive. This first meeting with her turned into a bitter memory I would never forget. My son's wedding preparations progressed smoothly afterward. Though smoothly means without much consultation or reporting to us. My son had always mentioned he preferred a small wedding ceremony. He had always talked about wanting a small, family-only ceremony. But in reality, my son's wishes were completely disregarded. The wedding turned out to have nearly 100 guests. This had to be Amelia's doing. While I accepted it, thinking it was fine if my son was happy, I was concerned about her forceful approach. If things continued this way, he would always be under her thumb. I felt he needed to assert himself more. When I shared my concerns with him, he responded with a troubled smile. "Sorry for worrying you. But please, let me handle this. A wedding is mostly about the bride, and I want to fulfill her wishes as much as I can." His words left my husband and me with no choice but to remain silent. Considering the size of the wedding, the expenses must be substantial. After discussing with my husband, we decided to give a generous gift. To help the couple as much as we could. On the day of the wedding, the bride and groom's dressing room was overflowing with people. Friends of the bride and groom came and went, greeting them. I even spotted some models, likely colleagues of Amelia. With so many guests, the reception was hectic, a real whirlwind. Cousins and my son's friends were managing the reception desk. It seemed Amelia's coworkers were helping out on her side. We made sure to give our gift before the reception got too busy. After the wedding, "What a lavish ceremony it was," relatives commented. It had been a while since I attended such a grand wedding. The ceremony itself was truly magnificent. The incident came to light the day after the wedding. As we were finally taking a breather, our son rushed in, visibly upset. Our usually gentle son was angrier than I'd ever seen him. "What are you trying to do, making me look bad? If you're against this marriage, just say it," he shouted, leaving me speechless. With a stern look, he glared at my husband and me alternately. My husband, too, was stunned. "Kenneth, calm down, please. What happened? We have no idea what you're talking about." I said, trying to remain calm. Arguing back wouldn't solve anything. It was the first time my son raised his voice at us, and I was far from calm inside. My husband seemed quite shocked too. Seeing my composure, my son seemed to calm down a bit and sat on the living room sofa. "It's about the wedding gift," he started. "Wedding gift? What about it? Was there a problem?" Knowing the wedding would be extravagant, we quickly decided to give generously. We had given $3,000. Was it not enough? I began to worry. "Big problem. A $10 wedding gift. Have you ever heard of such a thing?" he said, placing the envelope on the table. Indeed, the envelope had my husband's name on it. But I immediately noticed something was off. The handwriting wasn't my husband's. "So you're saying there was only $10 in the wedding gift envelope?" I pressed for confirmation. My son nodded and opened the envelope in front of us. True enough, there was only $10 inside. "Last night, Amelia checked it," my son explained. "She was in tears, thinking she's not accepted as a wife." Despite saying this, my son's expression showed doubt. Deep down, he knew we wouldn't do such a thing. "Kenneth, do you really think we'd do this? You know this handwriting isn't Dad's, right?" I responded. Hearing this, my son let out a deep sigh and slumped his shoulders. "You're right, Mom. I don't understand how this could have happened either," he admitted, looking distraught. It pained me to see him like this. I reassured him that we had given $3,000, not the amount in the envelope. "Why is it $10? We gave $3,000. My husband said, examining the envelope with a puzzled look. Regardless, the $3,000 was mysteriously missing. And in a way that made us look bad. Anger surged within me. "This is theft. Let's report it to the police," I suggested to my son and husband. We didn't know where the switch happened, but we needed to clarify how the $3,000 was stolen. It hurt to suspect the friends and colleagues who had helped at the reception. "All right. I'll also contact Amelia," my son said, pulling out his mobile phone. He seemed to be explaining that the original gift was $3,000 and this $10 was a fake. Amelia's voice, faintly heard from the receiver, sounded accusing. As if she thought I, who didn't approve of her, was behind this. It seemed she was determined to pin this on me, and the conversation dragged on. "This isn't going anywhere. Like Mom said, I'm thinking of reporting this to the police," my son finally said, and I could sense Amelia falling silent. "Wait. This doesn't need to involve the police." Amelia's voice became anxious. She was pleading with my son not to go to the police. Then I whispered to my son, "Why not ask Amelia to come over?" I felt it was better to discuss this with everyone present. My son conveyed this to Amelia and ended the call. She arrived about 15 minutes later. During that time, my son reached out to friends and cousins who managed the reception. Without revealing the missing gift, he checked if any outsiders had accessed the reception area. Everyone said nothing unusual had happened. He only told the truth to his cousin, who then mentioned they had photos from the reception desk and offered to send them. The data arrived on my son's mobile phone shortly after. While we were checking each photo, Amelia arrived. Looking pale and without makeup. "Calling the police isn't peaceful, Natalie. Why won't you admit what you've done? This is harassment against me, isn't it?" Amelia accused me as soon as she arrived. However, I noticed her eyes darting around uneasily. Her behavior was clearly suspicious. "Amelia, calm down. Why would I do such a thing? I never opposed your marriage. On what basis are you accusing me?" As Amelia grew more agitated, I became calmer. My husband silently observed the unfolding events. I believe this is a case of theft. Someone switched our wedding gift with this fake. It's a terrible and calculated crime. I think the best course of action is to contact the police and have them investigate, I said, holding the counterfeit gift envelope. Amelia then reached out to snatch the envelope. But I was quick to protect it. It was crucial evidence. I couldn't risk it being damaged right in front of us. No, this needs to be submitted to the police as evidence, I insisted. Amelia's reaction convinced me, more than ever, that she was involved in this. Are you trying to harass me by blowing this out of proportion? Kenneth told me you were kind, but this is disappointing. I'm starting to feel anxious about being your DIL. Amelia said, now addressing my husband in a softer tone. When she realized she couldn't sway me, she targeted my husband. But he remained silent, understanding I wasn't capable of such malice. Our mutual trust as a couple made me feel relieved. You're all being so cruel, as if I'm the liar. But isn't it Natalie who's lying? Amelia said, tears welling up. Her tears seemed insincere. That's right, the liar is you, Amelia. My son calmly said, having been reviewing photos sent to his mobile phone. Amelia looked at his phone in shock, her face turning from pale to ghostly white. These photos are evidence, Amelia. Do you have any explanation? My son asked. Seeing this, Amelia began to tremble. My husband and I looked at the photo on the phone. It was one of the photos taken by my cousins at the reception desk. Behind my cheerful cousins flashing peace signs, there was Amelia reaching for the wedding gifts. I recalled Amelia disappearing from the dressing room in her dress for about 30 minutes, supposedly to greet friends at the reception. My son zoomed in to show Amelia's hands. In one hand, she firmly held a thick envelope, the real wedding gift. In the other, a thin envelope. This is a fake! I would never do this. It's a doctored photo. It must be Natalie's cousins did it on her instruction. Amelia continued with her strained excuses. She claimed my nephews, who managed the reception, had created a composite photo at my behest. I was astonished at her attempt to wriggle out of the situation. No wonder she was so against reporting this to the police. Who would bother to do such a thing? Please, use some common sense, I replied. I couldn't help but become exasperated listening to Amelia's far-fetched excuses. My son and husband, silent, observed the exchange between Amelia and me. Their faces screamed, were so appalled, were speechless. Why would you do this, Amelia? Do you dislike my family that much? My son asked, to which Amelia did not respond. Anyway, where is the $3,000? You have it, right, Amelia? You know it was meant to be a contribution to our wedding expenses, not something for you to keep all to yourself, right? My son probed gently, yet Amelia just hung her head and let the tears fall. I don't want to report my own wife to the police, he said. Then, as if resigning to the situation, Amelia began to confess. She had a substantial debt due to her extravagant spending habits, often purchasing the outfits she modeled. Her inability to resist her desires led to her debt. Moreover, her obsession with beauty treatments and expensive salon visits only worsened her financial situation. She had tried to clear her debt before the wedding but failed due to the large amount. Hence, she decided to switch the wedding gifts in a desperate attempt to settle her debts. What a blunder it was to open and switch the envelopes at the reception. She must have been panicking to commit such a mistake. Do you know about Amelia's debts? I asked my son, who shook his head in response. He then faced Amelia seriously. Let's get a divorce. I hate lies. Had you told me about your debt, we could have tackled it together. Didn't I ask you to value family? Yet, you disgraced my parents. I can't be married to you. It's over, he declared. My son is gentle, but he's decisive and stubborn about his principles. Amelia was stunned by his decision for divorce. No, it's a lie, right? I'll return the money. It was just a momentary lapse. The debt, I'll pay it off with the wedding gifts. It's too embarrassing to get divorced right after the wedding, she pleaded, clinging to my son, who remained stoic. Eventually, 3 days post-wedding, my son filed for divorce. Amelia returned to her parents' home. Initially living alone, her parents took her back to keep an eye on her. Her debt was far more than we imagined, much more than what stealing $3,000 could cover. It seemed she had plotted to shift the blame to us and drive a wedge between us and our son. Such shallow thinking. We returned all the wedding gifts we received, along with apologies. Amelia resisted, intending to use the gifts to pay off her debts, but my son didn't allow it. Her return home became the talk of the neighborhood and among friends. Embarrassed, she's now confined to her parents' house, gaining weight and with deteriorating skin. She couldn't continue her modeling career and had to resign. Now unemployed and reclusive, my son sincerely apologized for ever doubting us. He promised to be even more filial than before. Our family bond remained intact, a true relief. Next time my son brings a girlfriend home, I'll make sure to thoroughly assess whether she's the right one.